Welcome to another bonus episode of Cinemaholics. They said it wouldn't be done. They said, no. The holidays are too close. There's no way John and Will are going to be back for a Christmas episode this soon in the season. Well, you're right, because it's not just John and Will. First of all, I'm John Agroni. You know me. Will Ashton is here. Hey, Will.
Hey, what's up?
I'll tell you what's up. We got a special guest to talk about a movie based on I Love Lucy called Being the Ricardos. Big movie, now on Amazon Prime in limited release. But Will Ashton, this is a person who you came to me, knocking on my door, middle of the night, drunk, obviously, and you're like, we need this person on the show. We cannot talk about Being the Ricardos without this person. You know them better than I do, so who is this?
Sure, yeah, it's a good friend of mine and a frequent guest on my other podcast, Saint Ogre Toad's Ogre, and she is one of two people in charge of the new and exciting YouTube account called Silly Sickos. It's my good friend, Anna Rigetti. Hey, Anna.
Hey, Will. Hi, John. Thanks for having me on Cinemaholics. And Will, you are a friend, but I am your fan.
Oh, wow.
So I'm very happy and excited to be here and talk about Being the Ricardos with you today.
I said that exact same thing to Will one time, and
Okay.
He didn't believe it. He said I was lying. And it's great to have you here. And yeah, like one of the reasons is because we're talking about a movie that is covering I Love Lucy. And I know I've been told through the grapevine that you've watched a lot of episodes and you have a particular interest in that 1950s series with Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. Why did you want to explore the show through your channel? What was your mission statement there?
So when my best friend and Silly Sicko's partner and other half, Maddie, were creating the channel, we had some ideas for different series. One where we talk about the Best Motion Picture nominations of 10 years ago. The other was deep diving into I Love Lucy to try and find a certain line that was sort of an inside joke when we forged our friendship, which was, I swear, Desi Arnaz as Ricky Ricardo says either like, you make me look like a Chiquita banana or you look like a Chiquita banana to Lucy. And I don't know why that line really stuck with me, and I thought it was so funny. And I am on a mission to find whether or not that line is real and exists. And the way we are going about that is just watching every episode ever. And then we are also talking about how well or not well the show has aged in terms of comedy, in terms of the cultural aspects and references in it, and the respectfulness towards other cultures, we'll say, and just in general, it is a classic, legendary show from an icon, actually, like from a few icons, just powerhouse actors and comedians. So it's been a real journey and exciting thing so far. We've gotten through all of season 1 and we're currently on season 2, and we're going to keep going until we find this line or don't find it and we watch all 193 episodes.
But it wouldn't all be for nothing, because how can you not love I Love Lucy? That's always been my question. I have a question though about this line. Did you try to Google it, or did you want to like organically, you're like, no, we don't want to hack the system?
So I tried years ago, before we had the channel, to look it up or look on forums, and there's like an I Love Lucy Reddit page, and
of course,
did not want to find it like that exactly. When a number one like Google search didn't turn up anything, I didn't want to ask those experts that were going to say, oh, it's season 4, episode 11 at 20 seconds into the third scene. Like, no, I just, at a certain point, I was like, you know what? Why don't I just go through it all and actually find it organically? Because it's going to be such a sweet, sweet victory to have that moment of like, I knew it, or just be like, holy crap, I guess I'm just insane. And
you're going to be like jumping in the air like Squidward when it happens? Exactly
that. Freeze frame and all.
Well, I know we have a lot of listeners from the I Love Lucy subreddit, I'm sure. So please preserve the victory that Anna seeks. That would be great.
Yes, that was established when we started the series. If you know what we're talking about, don't spoil it. Just come along for the ride, please. So yeah, please preserve the sanctity of the show.
Good luck. I wish you nothing but the best in that endeavor. Fun and silly as it is, I think it matches the flavor of I Love Lucy, so that's good. But we're talking about a movie based on the show I Love Lucy, but really based on its two title characters. I guess we can say title characters because of things that happen in this movie. I Love Lucy, the 1950s show. I think it started like 1951, 1952, I want to say, right after the Korean War. I mean, this was, one of the defining shows of like the early television era. This and Dick Van Dyke. We got WandaVision earlier this year. I know, Will, you didn't get to WandaVision. I know you were hotly anticipating it. You were staring at the window at everybody. Oh yeah, you wanted to watch it so badly.
Oh geez.
Yeah.
I mean, I heard the beginning of it's pretty good, and then I heard
the beginning of it covers I Love Lucy and Dick Van Dyke, right? And it's kind of like homaging that. And this movie is kind of like a week in the life of making a single episode of I Love Lucy. This was written and directed by Aaron Sorkin. This is his third time directing a film. First was Molly's Game, and then last year's Trial of the Chicago 7. I'm actually a little surprised we're getting another film from him this soon. I guess he, this just is staying on it. But
he got the bug.
He likes directing.
Yeah,
he's not just a screenwriter anymore. And I guess we can talk about if that's good or bad news later. But this is a big cast. This, obviously we have to talk about Nicole Kidman. She's here as Lucille Ball, and Javier Bardem stars here as Desi Arnaz. And even though I said this is a week in the life of them making a single episode, everything can and will go wrong. This kind of reminded me in some ways of like if they took a segment from that Steve Jobs movie, Jobs, the Danny Boyle one, where, they did 3 different like days in the life. This is just like a condensed version of that. But it goes back in time. It goes forward in time. There's like a quasi documentary thing they did where they cast actors as the real life people. Cause I believe they're just most of them are not with us anymore.
They're mostly deceased. Yes.
Yeah. Those 3 writers are dead as of now. Yeah. They've died. They've been dead for like the past 10 years. So
okay,
it would be hard to get them on the line. Right. So they cast other people, and they kind of, it's like giving this illusion. It kind of reminded me, not like the Big Short exactly, where they're breaking the fourth wall, but I guess that's kind of, the style adjacent there. I mentioned, of course, this hit limited theaters earlier this month, big awards push, and then it came out on Amazon Prime Video this past week. So a lot more people are checking it out. It's getting, I'd say, an interesting response from people. I think the main thing I'm saying is, nice attempt, but too long. And also these characters are miscast, even though the performances are good. I want to start with our guest, Anna. And Anna, I know you're quite familiar with I Love Lucy, obviously. So now that we kind of know that, what were your expectations though for this movie? Like when you decided to watch it, were you dreading it? Or were you kind of like not sure? What happened?
So I actually made my way out to a little local single screen theater to watch this the week it came out in those more limited release showings. And I was very excited because whenever I watched the trailer for this, I wasn't sure exactly what to expect, and it was definitely not the movie that we got, but I wanted to see that more, how do I say? Gritty is not the right word. I do not want to say gritty, but this
maybe
wasn't...
grounded?
Yeah, I was going to say grounded, yeah.
Perhaps. It wasn't going to be a slapstick comedy, because at first I was upset with the casting of Nicole Kidman and Javier Bardem. They announced this probably last year, and I was even like, who's doing this? What's going on?
I thought it was a joke. I thought it was like, oh, I get it. It's a parody.
I was, just very taken aback, because I was like, Deborah Messing is right there. She has already done an I Love Lucy tribute on Will and Grace with Eric McCormick, I believe that's his name. So I was like, the obvious choice is Deborah Messing. What's going on? But it wasn't to play Lucy Ricardo. It was to play Lucille Ball. And I do think that Nicole did a very good job being the more I don't want to say cutthroat, but serious, focused, driven, precise businesswoman and comedian that she was. And I was very impressed with her performance. And I thought that the makeup and things were maybe a little bit distracting, but that's also just Nicole Kidman's face now. So I couldn't really judge too harshly and be like, well, no, she didn't look like Lucille Ball. I think she looked as best as she could. No biopic is going to be absolutely perfect looking. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like the whole time I was watching her, I was like, it's Moulin Rouge again. Until they dressed her up as Lucille Ball. And I was like, oh, yeah, I mean, that's kind of close. I wonder if that same thing would have happened with Deborah Messing, right? Because, she looks like Lucille Ball, like when she dresses up as Lucille Ball, but then, Lucy, I mean, but then, like, I don't know, there's so many other scenes in the movie to consider. I wonder if they took that into account. And then they were also like, but we also need like a big headline actor in order for this movie to make money, because they think that still works. But what do you think, Will, about this casting decision?
I thought it was weird because for me, if I were to pick, like you said, like a big A-list actress to play Lucille Ball, I probably would have picked Amy Adams. I don't know if she would have been better or worse, but I think she's better or more versatile at balancing the comedy and drama, and also she's a natural redhead.
But hey, Lucy wasn't a natural redhead.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I also thought that Javier Bardem was kind of an odd choice as well for Ricky Ricardo, or what's his real name? Ricky.
It's Desi Arnaz.
Desi Arnaz. I apologize.
It's okay.
But I felt watching the movie, it seemed like, even though he, as you mentioned, was a bit miscast, I thought that Javier Bardem fit into the part of Desi Arnaz pretty well. Like his charisma, his just like sort of easy charm and playing this part, while also balancing between, like you said, the comedy and drama, was more accessible than I anticipated. And I was pretty impressed with his performance. I thought Nicole Kidman was fine. I thought she was better, as Anna mentioned, at the dramatic moments and the comedic ones, which I guess makes sense, because when I think back on like Nicole Kidman comedies, I guess I think more of like dark comedies like The Killing of the Sacred Deer. Like I know she was in like Paddington, but that was like, she's kind of like the serious character, the villain in a otherwise comedic film. And the only other one I could compare this to was Bewitched, the Nora Ephron movie from 2005. And I mean, that one didn't turn out particularly great. So I always thought, as we mentioned, that was kind of an odd choice. And I think I heard somewhere that she was considering dropping out because of the backlash, because of this odd decision, but Aaron Sorkin convinced her to keep doing it. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, I mean, I don't think any of the cast members was like, that was a natural fit, but they weren't really trying to be either. And I thought the supporting cast was, I guess, a little bit, they were better at balancing that than I think the leads, at least.
You didn't think she was funny in The Prom?
Oh, I forgot she was in the prom. I totally forgot about The Prom. I'll be completely honest.
That's okay. You're not the only one. I think it is interesting, like kind of where her career has sort of like shifted a bit since, like I'm thinking of like some of her big performances. She does Destroyer in 2018. And that's supposed to be her like, okay, Nicole Kidman is here. She's here to win some awards. Let's go. Nobody watches The Destroyer except for like a bunch of really exciting film critics in San Francisco named me. And then like after that, what do we get with her? We get like Boy Erased, where she has like supporting role. She has a very small role in Aquaman. She's in Goldfinch. We didn't even talk about that on the show. I don't. Did you even see Goldfinch, Will?
I did not. Did you?
I don't think anybody did, okay, including the people who made it. And then Bombshell was like, okay, she's back, but even then she was still like, she was third billing, right, to like Margot Robbie. And so I think it's been a while since we've like had her be like, this is a Nicole Kidman, like she's right there, like the top billing person, the one with the most dialogue and a good amount of time.
You say that, but like on TV, she's doing Big Little Lies where she's great. I didn't watch the
hey, Big Little Lies, that's a big ensemble show, right?
I guess, but like I remember that first season, at least, like people were like, she's doing some of the best work on here because she got like
that
the most dramatic
role.
She
stands out. She stands out, and I mean, she does it, holding her own against like Reese Witherspoon and Shailene Woodley. But again, it's not like a true showcase for her as like a single actor, if that makes sense. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I get what you're saying.
I think that she's a great actress. I think that she always has been, and I've always been confounded by her career to date. But you did mention Javier Bardem as well, and this is definitely a different performance we've seen for Javier Bardem. It's kind of safe to say. Most people probably know him from like Skyfall, No Country for Old Men. You know, his kind of like very chewy like villain roles. I think, am I forgetting anything else? I know Dune, but you know, he was barely in that.
Which Pirates of the Caribbean movie was he in?
I think the most recent one that everybody decided to forget happened.
Sure. Except for me. I thought he was good in it in an otherwise not good film.
He was also in Eat, Pray, Love, which I had to watch this year for our other series where we talk about the Oscar well, that wasn't Oscar nominated, but we also were watching like just the most popular movies from that year. And so we watched Eat, Pray, Love, and he was okay in that. He did a fine job in that for being like a guy who ran away from his problems to an island and then marries a divorcee. I don't know. We're not here to talk about Eat, Pray, Love.
Yeah.
But I found it a little, not odd, but interesting. And I know there was also some backlash about him being cast since he is Spanish and not Cuban. You know, Desi Arnaz is from Cuba. I can't imagine that there aren't Cuban actors that also could have like fit the bill and played Desi Arnaz.
Yeah, we just had a Cuban actor play a Puerto Rican actor in West Side Story, and I'm just like, we're playing musical chairs.
Right.
No, I think for me, I didn't care too much. I'm not Cuban, I'm Puerto Rican, but you know, just a couple islands away, I guess. But I mean, it happens all the time. Like we have, you know, like Antonio Banderas playing, you know, a Mexican man in The Mask of Zorro. It's just a lot of people just have like, I think even this movie like touches on the sort of like how like, oh, it's a Spanish name, and then it's just like all the different like, you know, listing all different Spanish things like they're all the same or on the same page or something like that. I was gonna say though, probably my favorite Javier Bardem performance in recent time was probably Mother. I know not everybody is on that wavelength with that movie, but
I agree. Yeah,
he's so good in that.
Yeah, he's very good as Darren Aronofsky /God / him.
Yeah, yeah, himself too, to some extent, I assume. I know he's going to be in The Little Mermaid, the next Disney, right. or one of the next Disney live action things. He's going to be, I think, Triton, the king.
Oh, is that right?
I believe so. Yeah, right. I think they're doing the movie like in the Caribbean, so they might be continuing that trend. I don't actually know the details there. So
he's like, I have some experience in the Caribbean, playing what's his face in Pirates of the Caribbean.
A pirate, you know, dreadlord or whatever he was. I mean, seriously, I'm actually starting to wonder, did that movie actually happen? And we imagined it. But anyway, being the Ricardos, the movie itself, I'm going to come out and say this because I think critics have come out and they said, no, thanks. This isn't good. This is not a good movie. Maybe some people have been a little bit more mixed. I'm going to say I liked this one. And much to Will's chagrin, I don't think Will's okay with me liking this movie, but that's fine. We can fight it out.
I literally said, I'm glad you like it.
I read in between the lines, Will. Sure. This movie may not be subtle, but you are.
All right, fair enough.
I will say this movie is not subtle whatsoever.
No, it's not.
And overall, though, what did you think of this movie? Were you into it?
Overall, I was into it. I agree. I think you stated a little bit ago, it was entirely too long. And I think there were definitely some choices that were questionable by Aaron Sorkin as far as having the faux documentary aspects and also the amount and the duration of the flashbacks. They took away from my overall positive outlook of the movie, but in the end, the main story of the two, not conflicting, but pressure situation news stories that may or may not happen, may or may not come out, may or may not be revealed. That main storyline that's also going through this week of production on I Love Lucy, I think was very strong, and I overall enjoyed it. Will I revisit it in the future? I don't know how often I'll go back and watch, like this Javier Bardem movie, this Nicole Kidman movie. I probably wouldn't choose Being the Ricardos as one of the first choices to revisit, but overall I did I think positively of it, and I just have I have the qualms about it being too long and some of the other choices, and I have the more, I don't want to say factual nitpicking, but there were things that frustrated me because they literally are not how they went down in history that were in this movie. That's what I have a problem with. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah, I definitely want to get into that pretty soon. And for me, it was more of like after the fact, because there were some things I was unsure about. I was like, wait, was that really, is that really what happened there? Was the timing of that right? That doesn't seem right. But it didn't bother me as much until after the movie. And then I was like, oh, yeah, I mean, he's just, there's a line in this movie where Nicole Kidman is like, stop gaslighting me or something. And it's, a very weird line considering it comes off as a bit modern. And I know there's a whole debate about that, how modern it actually is. But I was kind of thinking to myself, I feel like Aaron Sorkin's gaslighting us.
I just saw, I don't want to say backlash or anything about the, don't gaslight me line. This morning was the first time I had seen anything, but it's also, as you said, more people are now just watching it. They didn't all run out to their theaters and see it. But I, when that movie was said, gasped and turned to my friend and was like, oh my gosh, they said gaslight, because we said that the 3 pillars of this series is girl boss, gatekeep, and gaslight of I Love Lucy. So the fact that she said don't gaslight me just really tickled me, and it doesn't exactly fit with the time, but I interpret it as if someone would say, like, they're using the title as a verb. I know people are like, but no one did it back then. I'm like, okay, well, that's what I'm just saying. She's like, don't eat, pray, love me. Don't, I can't even think of other movies. Don't Skyfall me. Those don't really make sense, but that's what I'm thinking. Lucille Ball was not an idiot. That's what I'm thinking she was saying. Like, they obviously saw the movie. Don't be like that guy to me. She didn't say gaslighting. I don't know, but
okay, that's an interesting, an interesting theory. Mine was that I just assumed it was something that maybe not a lot of people said back then, but it was sort of, maybe he kept it in because he was like, well, she's an intellectual, and like a lot of this movie is about how she wasn't this character. Like, this character was, like, they even say in the movie, like, infantilized, and kind of stressing the conflict of that and why she chose to do this persona to be funny, but like using language like this to be like, oh, this is something that like people on like the coast, like LA, like this was like a thing. It just wasn't common knowledge back then. But well, I'm kind of, that's a headcanon thing. What did you think, Will?
Well, I believe there is actually an episode of I Love Lucy where she watches Gaslight and she like tries to gaslight Mr. Cleaver. I could be totally off base, but I've heard this. And I guess the charitable.
Can I recommend to you a YouTube channel where they're actually going through the entire series, and you might be able to get even more context on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing you haven't watched that episode yet. I think that's later in the series. Like, I think it's like season 5 or something, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it's a little bit later, but we will get there eventually.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, I guess the charitable read is that he's referencing that. But I'm guessing if I were to make an assumption, I'm guessing Aaron Sorkin said that, like, he wrote that down. He was like, I don't know if that quite fits. And then he saw when Gaslight came out, it's like he shrugged his shoulders, like,
like talked himself into it.
Right. He's like, they probably said
that's
like
fine. That's fine. Yeah, I would say even if it's like technically accurate, I don't think it's executed quite well because it does distract. It does take you out of the time period because it is such a more modern phenomenon. Even if it was something that was a thing back then, it stopped being. And so I don't know. That's one of those things that could have used a studio note most likely. I was gonna say I didn't mention this before, but I Love Lucy. I loved I Love Lucy when I was a kid. Like, we watched this show all the time when I was growing up. I don't think I've seen every single episode because there are a lot of episodes, but I know I've seen like all of the episodes where the kid is in it because I think like those are the later ones. Those were the ones that like I liked the most because I was a little boy, you know what I mean? And I think that this show was like a big deal in my household in particular because my parents always found it so cool that it literally was like this, they say in this movie, like all-American woman, right? Quote unquote, but in a public marriage with a white Hispanic man, a white Latino man. And I don't know, there was something kind of like, monumental about that. I like how the movie kind of touches on that. It gets into it a bit, but it doesn't make it the whole thing with this. And I know some people are saying there's too much going on in this movie. Like they're saying like, okay, pick a lane. Right. You have the communist stuff where she gets accused of being a communist. That's the inciting incident. They're not sure if this could be their last episode because they might just get canceled. Also, she's pregnant. Also, the person, Ethel, played by, I forget who plays Ethel, the actor, but she's having a beef. And then also is Desi cheating on Lucy? Like all these things are crammed into it. And I've seen some people be like, it's too much. It's, Sorkin's trying to, fit too many things into this movie. But for me, it's stressed like, it got across like how difficult it was making the show, that this was like probably the hardest week of them making it, but a nice little like encapsulation of the challenges that they had to face, because you could easily do like a whole movie about the first episode that they do, not knowing that it's going to be, one of the most successful TV shows of all time. So I don't know. I thought that was interesting, and I kind of ate the movie up. But and I know you probably have your own baggage with I Love Lucy, and yeah.
I was just going to say, at first, I wasn't sure if you were talking about Vivian Vance or Nina Arianda playing Vivian Vance, but I agree.
Nina Arianda, yeah.
Okay, there was.
I was trying to remember the name of the actor who plays the actor who plays Ethel.
Yeah, who plays Ethel. There was a lot going on, and I wish almost that you saying right now it could have been about the very first episode of I Love Lucy. I don't want to say it almost is. There is just, with those flashbacks, we see so much leading up to how they got to where they are. And I almost wish that could have been the movie. It could have been becoming the Ricardos, and it would have been more of just what's in the flashbacks and leading up to the initial reception and things like that. It might not have been it might not have had as much conflict as this, but
I think this was the better choice.
Yes. I also like this hectic week. I just wish that it was more focused at times, and we didn't need to see I feel like as many flashbacks, or like I said, the duration of the flashbacks was very long comparatively to the quote unquote present day part of it.
I would have maybe not cut them entirely, but maybe edited them down, because I enjoyed a lot of the flashbacks. I think a lot, like some of the flashbacks have really good context, better than the documentary stuff, because it was kind of nice to go back and see, okay, here's how they met. Here's some, incidents involving like things that explain why there's like this rift in the present. But I do agree that like some of them go on too long and they're not edited and paced super well. I think Alan Baumgarten did the editing for this movie, and I don't know. I think that they maybe were trying to, I don't know, they keep the whole thing under a certain runtime, but then they just went over the runtime and didn't care. Maybe, I don't know. What do you think, Will?
Well, I think that comes down to my biggest issue with the movie, which is that I think it's not so much the editing, but the direction from Aaron Sorkin. I think he's getting weirdly worse as a director, I think, because I thought Molly's Game, like, it wasn't like he did an amazing job, but it's like, okay, there's a little bit of flair here. You can see the inspiration. Trial Chicago 7, like, it's pretty stagey, but it's based on a Broadway show, so you kind of forgive it because, like you said, the ensemble's there. But this one, like, the script has some good beats. Like, it's clear that, like, Sorkin's pretty inspired as far as, like, he has the TV experience working on, West Wing and The Newsroom and all this stuff. He has this like kind of insider info, but his directing style saps all the like suspense or like this kind of adrenaline that's supposed to be building up, because he doesn't really have any flair or any good perception of like how like to build momentum in a scene or how to have like a lot of like spice. I think that would be fine because it's supposed to be, an Amazon Prime exclusive. So I think a lot of people are just going to watch this at home and not be bothered by that. But I think as far as making a film about like all these conflicting efforts and capturing that sense of like, we kind of have to do this balancing act. Like, it's so stressful what's happening right now. I just don't think Sorkin's quite adept enough as a director to really pull off that fine balance. I think as a screenwriter, like, he can work with somebody like David Fincher or like Bennett Miller, like he did for Moneyball, or Rob Reiner with A Few Good Men, or as you mentioned, Danny Boyle with Steve Jobs. And I think they have enough style or, have enough of a visual sense to kind of communicate that stuff really well. But Sorkin, because I guess he's still a little green at the job, I think he ultimately undermines what he's doing well with the screenplay.
I agree with you 100%. I think that's what it is. I think that the script here is great, in my opinion. I actually think the script and the performances are really good, but it's like you said, I think that he's a bit precious with his script. He doesn't know, I don't think he has the experience and the tenacity to like really bring his scripts down. I bet you if he directed somebody else's screenplay, a lot of these problems wouldn't be here. But I don't think he would ever do that because he's known for his screenplays. It's, you know, his writing is so unique and so different. We did our whole, you know, Sorkin parody last year, right? So I think that there is something to be said about him going back to the old model. I don't know why he feels like he has to direct his stuff now, because it's not that he's a terrible director, like in the small details or even in the big picture. It's just, at least in the big picture of like what this movie should be. But I guess that has more to do with the script. It just comes down to like when he's actually taking his script and bringing it to film, I don't know, finding ways to, you know, cut the right corners, having the right discernment, being able to make calls like that and like really steer the ship in a way that people, you know, like the editors, like the, you know, people doing all the production design can like create something a bit more cohesive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's not incompetent decisions. They're just kind of boring and safe ones. It feels like a movie like this needs something a little bit riskier, a little bit more exciting to justify, you know, bringing this classic sitcom to life and showing it in a new way. It just seems like he just doesn't really have that vision for the project as a director to really pull off that idea.
Now, for me, this is what keeps the movie from being like awesome, but I still really liked it. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I agree with what y'all just said. And I also kind of had the question, like, why did he want to make this? Why did he want to write this? Aside from me and Maddie have theorized that, like, it was the big reveal at the end with napkins. I don't know if that's too spoilery, but we feel like he almost, like, had that idea, wrote that scene, and then just had to, like, backtrack and go back and try and write the rest of it to make it so lead up to that part. And I think he did an okay job. It was watchable. It was mostly, you know, enjoyable, but I don't know like why this was made. And I mean, art for the sake of art, sure, but to bring I Love Lucy back, or to try to sort of with this, it was just I don't want to say confusing, but I just want to know like if there were any other big motivating factors for him to write and direct this movie, especially without all the sizzle, as we've kind of been saying. Mm-hmm. There's not much sizzle.
Yeah, I wonder if he literally just like sat down and was like, what if I could fit more Oscar reels than any other movie in history? Because I definitely got that feeling when I was watching this. There were so many things I was like, is this the Oscar reel for Nicole Kidman? Right. Oh no, it's probably this one. Oh no, you know what, this is J.K. Simmons supporting one. And then
I don't know, I just feel like the better version of this would have been like a 2-part HBO miniseries where like the first episode is like that ticking clock thing where they have to get this episode out in a week, and you have that building like dread of like, can Lucille pull this off, can like she get all these like things right, and then at the end you reveal like, oh, now she's an alleged communist. And then the second half you get like the kind of flashbacks, and you build more on the like balance between her work life and her real life, and you get that. And I feel like that would have been easier to forgive the shortcomings that Sorkin has as a director if it was just on TV. You could kind of, you know, build the characters a little bit more and expand on a lot of these ideas that feel somewhat shortchanged in a feature film. But yeah, I don't know, it feels like there's an interesting idea here, but I agree with Anna. It's just like, I don't quite know what Sorkin really wanted to take out of the story. I don't even get the sense that he's like a I Love Lucy fan. There's like kind of a weird cynicism to the way he perceives the show, or how he perceives the creative process. I think so. I
don't think of cynicism. I think he respects it quite. I think he sees like the cold mechanical part of it, but then uses this movie to show like, they got it down to a science, but there was a passion, particularly from Lucy, in like really like getting the comedy right. I know like the motivation was like, we got to get the comedy right for this last episode, but I didn't get that at all.
I just think he's cynical about comedy. Maybe that's more accurate, because like we've seen that show that he did, Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, where he's like, you know, doing like the behind the scenes of SNL and stuff. And from what little I've seen of that show, it's like he just seems to have like little value for comedy, or like the value he sees in comedy.
I disagree.
Like, okay.
I think he's saying comedy is a lot harder than people think, and I think he's like purposely calling out like people who are bad at it. and like showing that like you can do really good comedy, but you know, it's got to come from somebody who really respects it. I don't know. I don't see what you're saying. Well,
I just think if that's the case, I feel like he's not properly communicating it, at least these two projects. Like, I think he has the idea down pat, but it's a lot of like monologuing and it's a lot of just like telling as opposed to showing. And I feel like maybe, I don't know, maybe it's just not productive for his style or something. Like, he can be a very funny writer.
Anna, what do you think? Because I think we're having one of our classic, you know, Lucy and Desi fights right now, and yeah, we need a sober perspective.
I think perhaps each of you is like a little bit right. I'm not entirely sure what Aaron Sorkin's opinion on comedy is, and I think I'm leaning more with John that it's probably, I don't know about calling out, but saying, you know, comedy is hard. Even this physical slapstick comedy that Lucia is known for and famous for, and is actually like way more, there was way more thought put into it. Lucille Ball was meticulous about it. There was effort. It was all precise, even though it's a kind of broad physical like comedy, and that it's way more difficult than people think. And I also think that Will is kind of right that there is something a little bit off, though, because he is in this same movie saying that, you know, okay, Lucille Ball was like super serious about it. They all came, the Jess and Bob and Madeline, they all wrote it, you know, this way. But at the same time, they're like, well, Lucy is a baby and that's why people like her. And so it's a weird, I feel like, I don't want to say dichotomy or dynamic, but it's a little bit of both, where it's like, well, are you saying that this was funny, or are you saying that this was for babies and this is dumb? And I think perhaps it's a little more like on that it's hard, it's serious, it's more than people think it is side. But there were times where it was like, well, why would you offend Lucy in the same breath that you're trying to compliment her? So I think it's a little, again, I don't know why it got so, I don't know if convoluted is the right word, but some things got twisted around or mixed up somewhere along the line where it's like, well, what is the message? What are you trying to say?
I think that's getting into it. What I think I like the most about the movie is that I think it is both. I think it is sort of like a lot of this movie is about, you know, the struggle that Lucille Ball had elevating the comedy in this above like what you're saying, where like, yeah, CBS and these people, like they didn't have the same vision of like, no, we can have a baby on the show, and you know, we can do comedy that is very funny, that shows Lucy as like this, you know, strong, like she gets into wisecracking situations and all of that, but like there is a version of the show that does not work, that leans way too hard into that side of comedy that I do think that he's probably pretty cynical about, and rightfully so.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, I guess, more broadly speaking, he's against the idea of mediocrity, in that, like, because you see I Love Lucy parodied and referenced so much, you kind of like assume the formula. And I guess to what you're both are saying, like his credit, like he's trying to say like, no, there's like a very precise formula. Like, it's not just like you have to do this and this and this and you have a good episode of I Love Lucy. Like, there's a lot of components in place to make this work as it does and work as successfully as it has for so many years. And I can respect that, but I also just feel like, kind of going back to what I said before, I just don't think Sorkin is super adept as a director to really pull off that balance or really showcase that tenacity. It just seems like he makes a lot of kind of like simple and basic choices as a director, and even sometimes as a screenwriter. And I feel like that undermines some of the points he's trying to make.
Yeah, I guess that's where I disagree. I think he does a pretty good job at it, because I think that to me, what he gets across is that there are easy laughs and there are good laughs. You know, like there's a way to just make people laugh like in a very easy, like manufactured way. It's not going to last the test of time, but that wasn't this show really. Like, it was a little bit of this show because it wasn't a perfect one, but you know, I think that this movie gets across all the really good stuff about I Love Lucy, particularly how forward thinking it was, the fact that they shot it on film instead of like through a picture of something, in order for it to like really be a show that you can still watch years later. And like the detail, it's like very crisp, it's very easy to rewatch and all of that. So I don't know, that was my takeaway at least. What about you, Anna?
Right. Or that kind of almost leads me back to what I forget which one of you said it, but is he a fan because of I Love Lucy? I mean, because there were just certain inconsistencies. I feel like this is a good point for me to jump in and say, this is where it went wrong from the actual show standpoint, though. Like, so Fred and Ethel fight is the episode that they were making, and they're saying it's season 2, episode, I don't know, 6 or something.
I think they said episode 4, yeah, but it wasn't. It was season 1, episode 22. Right. It was very strange.
Yeah.
Yes, and towards the end, before the big climactic moment, Lucy and Jess were talking, and I forget what they said, but Lucy, it's like, oh, that's the best thing you've ever written. And Lucy goes, no, that was Vitamita Vegemin. That's episode 30 of season 1. So it would not have even taken place. They would not have shot it. Maybe, I doubt they would have even had it written and done a table read of it before this episode would have occurred. And yes, if it was season 2, then it would have, because that was season 30 of episode 1. But this was episode 22 of season 1. So that made my brain like, no, that's not right. And a big thing for me was that the apartment was wrong. They did not have a window in the back of the apartment until later seasons, if at all. And I say if at all because I don't know how much later that window gets there, because I don't know if they move into a different but almost identical apartment. But if you Google like I Love Lucy apartment, sometimes there is a window, but as far as season 1, when this episode actually occurs, and even 6 episodes into season 2, which I have watched, there's no window back there. So that was very odd and honestly frustrating just to me, even though it really doesn't matter in terms of being the Ricardos. But I was like, so is he a fan or is he not? Because I don't know how you would mess up the actual timeline of when these things were produced and put out to the American audience. So
right.
that was like annoying to me.
Yeah, especially because these are pretty easy things that you can look up and find and fact check. Like it's
that's
not like,
the thing.
Yeah,
I think there are a few possibilities, right? I mean, there's the one possibility where he didn't bother, didn't care. Like somebody was like, oh, there wasn't a window there. And he's just like, who cares? Maybe that's, his directing style is that he wants it to be right for the movie. He doesn't care if it's accurate to the show, which I think is a little weird. I think that is a strange thing to consider when this is a show kind of about, or this is a movie about that sort of thing, about getting things right. So I want to, I'm somewhat leaning toward the explanation that he's purposely trying to make this like a very fictional, I don't think he wants to like it to be all that authentic on purpose. It's kind of mysterious to me, but
then why is he have the documentary segments or the fake documentary segments?
That's the thing. Even that is fake. Like they didn't really say those things. And It's like, I wonder if he's like the director, right? Because I was curious about the director. I was like, was this the actual director? No, like this person didn't even exist. Like they kind of did, I guess, like a composite. And so I wonder if that's the approach he's doing. This is a composite, episode, a composite situation. It's not truly accurate to everything, but that's sort of the point. He's trying to fit in all of the, if you don't have the window there, it doesn't really sell to you that it's I Love Lucy. And so I wonder if that was his thinking, whether or not it's the right choice. Personally, I think that it's a distracting thing. It might take away from your enjoyment of the film after the fact, but I think the majority of people won't even notice these things, and that's probably what he was banking on, right?
No, I entirely think that he was like, no one's going to know. How could they know? Because who's watching every episode of I Love Lucy?
There's no YouTube channel out there devoted to unveiling the secrets of...
Yeah.
Exactly. So I know I'm one of probably the only people besides these Reddit I Love Lucy superfans that probably had anything to say about there's not a window back there whenever this episode is happening. And I think, oh, maybe from the production standpoint of being the Ricardos, it's another light source that looks a little more quote unquote natural, that, if they have the backlight from back there. But I'm like, everyone knows that this was shot in a studio. They're not trying to make it a believable household in the 1950s. So that just, like I said, annoyed me. But oh goodness, I forget what I was going to say. But how could he? Yeah, no, he thought no one was going to notice any inconsistencies. And the thing is that I went back and I even looked at the episode again. It does have the so-called original beginning where she's just setting the table. She's not fussing with any flowers. So, you don't know if that's true or false, whether or not there was an alternate beginning that she froze during and whatever else. But they did the Sam, Bill, Joe, Pablo, Juan,
Pedro,
Jose. Yeah, I was like,
yeah.
I can't even think of the names they said. And then she's like, oh yeah, it's you. And, Fred and Ethel come over, and I don't know, because I haven't rewatched Being the Ricardos. I can't remember how accurate Ethel's dress is. It's not that like sexy red dress. It's definitely one that's more toned down, but like the costuming is exactly what Lucy and Desi are wearing. Like the shirt, the details on the pockets, like the breast pockets are the exact same. The piano bench little elbowing thing, only Ethel falls off of it in the episode instead of both of them at the same time. But there's the one point when they're both in one coat with one arm in the sleeve. All of that is accurate in there. So I'm like, again, why did you choose certain details to keep and other ones why were they changed? And especially if you think no one's going to know, well, probably not. Then probably nobody really noticed except for me. But for me, I was like, Aaron Sorkin, I know you're a liar.
Well, you could be like Will, right? And then like watch the episode after. I was curious about watching the episode after. So then, people will know if they check it out right after.
Right. Yeah. Because I'm glad you brought that up, because I was waiting for that moment. Because in this movie, it's like that's like a key ingredient. Like that's like the thing that's supposed to click the episode into place. So I was waiting for that moment where they both fall off the bench, and I was like, oh, I guess is that like a later episode, or is that just not happen at all? I just thought that was a very odd choice to not have that scene in the film. Or not that, make that scene implying that was in the episode.
Yeah, I don't know if there was supposed to be some sort of like, and they ended up not even keeping that into the show after all. So it's like, even the things that she tried to do to make it better, CBS just like what continues to muck it up.
Right, because there's that whole thing with the flowers where like she was like really adamant about the flowers, and it's like they kind of had to compromise with that. So I don't know. I mean, maybe, but I don't know. That's the thing. It's like, I don't know if that's just giving Sorkin too much credit for making something that I don't know. I mean, that's a weird thing, is that like I feel like it's like we said before, it's like a movie that's so concentrated on the details, but then from a production standpoint it seems like it's pretty fast and loose with the facts. So
and that's why I think to what we've been saying, I think that a stronger director could have seen this and made a better decision on like, okay, look, we've got some of these like get these details right, like, or at least have like a point of view as to why are we saying this is in season 2. Like, what is even the point of that? Because if the idea is that the only thing I can think of is that they want to make it seem like it's further along in the show than it is, so that they can sell this idea that the show is at its peak. If that, you know what I mean? Like, I think if you say that it's season 1, episode 22, people are like, oh, this is the very beginning of I Love Lucy, when I guess it kind of was, but they want this movie to, I think Sorkin also wants this to be a movie about the success of I Love Lucy. So you can't really do both.
Right. Or I don't know if it was to try and tie in the pregnancy timeline. I don't know. I don't know if
that happens later, apparently. Like that was like a few years after they filmed this episode.
Right. I think that it's a composite. I think that they're just I think he's trying to like bring it all into one thing and just, be like, that's what we're doing. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. But then why not just pick a different episode of the show?
Because I think they cared about the communist thing being accurate, or they had to pick later. One thing being accurate, right?
I think, right? Because I think the communist accusations came later, like towards the end of the show. I could be mistaken though, but I thought that was later in the run.
Oh, I thought they did get that one thing right, but I'm not 100% sure.
I'm not sure on that part, because that is not actually in I Love Lucy, and usually I don't have the like background of what was happening that week when the production was going on. But
let's just assume it's all incorrect.
Kind of. That's what I feel like. I can't even be sure that is the reason why they chose this episode. But again, it's not season 2. Like, it just rounds back to that it's not even the right thing. And it could have been season 2, where they even feature a flash forward to when they go to the grape stomping, and that hasn't happened yet. And it's like, what? That is like Lucy directing almost, or she's calling the shots. But I'm like, okay, they wanted to bring in an iconic episode to have people be like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme, pointing at the screen. Oh my gosh, I remember watching that at grandma's. Like, I get that. So, but that also isn't in season 2, like at all, period, that they take a trip to Italy, if that's the real title of the episode. But the other titles that were featured in Being the Ricardos were the actual titles of the episodes. But so it's it's
At least though, I could see that
something.
being a thing where they're just like, oh, let's do the Italy episode later. I mean, even though I doubt that would even be true. Like, I guess, I don't know. I could see them try to like wriggle their way out of it. But I see your point.
Yeah, I looked it up. This episode was filmed in 1952. The child was born in 1953, and the accusations
It's a long pregnancy, Will.
And the accusations came out in September of 1953. Or actually, no, sorry. That came out, in 1953. And then the stuff that happens in the last act of the accusations against Desi came out in 1955. So timeline's all over the place. Yeah.
Which, again, I think that for me at least, and I understand that it's not going to do this for everybody, for me, it serves the purposes of this movie being more watchable than it would be otherwise if you try to do all these things separately. And again, it's something that I do like about the movie is that it does bring in, I do feel like I got a really good composite, like I said before, of all these different stresses. Yes, it's fictional. Yes, it's kind of like piling on in a way that isn't true to life. But I do think it gets the spirit of what it was like making the show across, at least for me. So I think that's why I enjoyed it. And I enjoyed this discussion. I feel like this was really cool. I'm a little sad that I'm the one who likes it the most. But it definitely doesn't sound like you two like hated it or anything like that. It's just, obviously you have some pretty sharp criticisms of this movie, and deservedly so.
Yeah, I don't hate it by a long shot, and it is definitely watchable and decently enjoyable, especially if you don't have this I Love Lucy knowledge in your brain that would just go off at any slight inaccurate reference.
I think a lot of people are going to be like, probably like people like me who are just like, we watched it when we were younger, and then like, so now it's a movie about it. It's like, oh yeah, I kind of vaguely remember this, but yeah, they can get away with it.
Right. If it's a vague memory, I think it works perfectly, and it's definitely watchable, enjoyable. And if you have, Prime, I mean, why not put it on and check it out if you're even remotely interested? I would say, anyone can do that. Maybe not run out to a theater if it's even still in theaters.
Yeah. It's very accessible in that way. Yeah, I don't think it's a big screen kind of movie, so I think that's all pretty fair.
Yeah, I mean, I think Amazon Prime is kind of perfect for a movie like this because, it's pretty easy to watch and you can kind of like come in and out of it pretty easily and not miss anything super major.
Yeah, and compared to Netflix too, like it has the X-ray thing, which is really handy for like, wait a minute, that's not the real documentary. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think that's very accurate. Or you could just check your phone. It's a little bit easier to do that at home than at the theater. So yeah, I mean, I guess for me, it's like fine. It's not something I'm like mad I saw or anything. I think I would have preferred if I saw it on Amazon Prime as opposed to seeing it in theaters because I thought we were recording this a little bit earlier. But yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's a type of film that I feel like I'm not going to be reflecting on too much. And like we said before, I feel like if you're a fan of I Love Lucy, you'll probably have more criticisms than not, as far as like what they cherry pick and what they choose to recreate and what they take out. But it's not like it's not a terrible film or anything. I just kind of wish it was just a little bit better.
Understandable. Yeah, it's nowhere near like one of my favorite films of the year. And, I'm kind of looking at some of the awards it's been pushed up for. And, I gotta say, like, I like Nicole Kidman in this movie. I don't think she's the best actress of the year for this movie. It's a good performance, and I think that it's pretty good. And I also don't think J.K. Simmons is all that great in this movie. Like, I'm thinking
I thought he was good.
I think he's good. I don't think he's great. I don't think he's best supporting actor, at the same level of, some of the other stuff we could see this year. So if there was one award that I think this movie maybe deserves like an award for, I don't think I would give it to original screenplay, but I think it is a pretty good screenplay. Like that one's more understandable to me, I guess.
I mean, I'd be fine with Nina Ardina. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right. Getting
Arianda,
sorry.
I'd
be fine.
Yeah,
Vivian. I mean, I think just because like she seems like the type of actress who's been doing consistently good work, but just hasn't really gotten recognition for it.
Yeah, so Goliath, right?
Yeah, I think she's on that. I haven't watched that show, but
I think that's like her big thing. And then she's been in smaller things too. And,
right. Yeah, I mean, like she was like in Richard Jewell a few years ago, a few other things. But like, yeah, she's like one of those actresses I think does consistently good work, but people don't really remember like, oh, like her performance in that film. Like she complements the film, but you don't think about her performance. So if this was able to get a leg up for her and give her some more recognition and praise, I'd be fine with that. But otherwise, I don't think any of these performances really need to get awards consideration.
Yeah, I agree. I think Nina is probably, I don't want to say the standout, but as far as what I've read on the relationship between Vivian Vance and Lucille Ball and how it was portrayed, I think she did a absolutely fantastic job playing that second banana. And you know, she's an actress and she's a woman too, and it just, I think she did a brilliant job. And I also could see this getting nominated for more of the artistic categories like hair and makeup or costuming, because they are so iconic with the hair and makeup and costuming. Like I said, the details in the episode costuming were exact, and there was like, I loved the little kind of pants and vest with the blouse that Lucy wore around the studio. I think that fit her character perfectly, and just because it also is like a period piece. I don't want to say that big awards favor period pieces for costuming, but fantasy and period pieces usually take those types of awards. So I could definitely foresee some nominations there, if anything. But I kind of agree. Nicole and Javier really shouldn't. Even J.K. Simmons, we've seen much better from him from other roles in the past. I don't think this is at that caliber to be nominated for supporting actor, although he did really hit some of the heartfelt, emotional beats that were towards the end of the movie.
Yeah, especially the scene in the bar, I think, was probably my favorite with him. And yeah, he's good throughout, for sure. I was also going to shout out, I really like Tony Hale in this. I thought that he, you know, I don't know, it just is like, it's a stereotypical character, the exasperated producer, but they have some fun with that toward the end between him and Nicole Kidman that I thought was really cool to see. And I liked Aaliyah Shawkat in this, you know, maybe from Arrested Development. So she plays like Madeline.
It's a little Arrested Development reunion.
It is, right? With her and Tony Hale. And I thought that was kind of nice. And I think she's very good in here. She has some fun, like, you know, bantering with Jake Lacey that makes for some of the film's lighter moments. So, and then also, if there could be an award for best rendition of Cuban Pete, I could see this getting a nomination.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that if we get to see Javier Bardem perform Cuban Pete at the Oscars. I'd be cool with that for sure.
He drank in that song. I mean,
he was having fun.
Yeah, they were just like, okay, Javier, you know, you can just play Cuban Pete. You know, we only need you at like a 6 or a 7. He comes out 15.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, it's just, you know, kind of a transitional scene. We're just a little bit fun. Just like, all right, I'm going to give it everything I got. Sure.
Yeah, he really, really brought it there. And that was fun to see. Let's wrap things up with the Rotten Tomatoes game. Now, Anna, I don't know if you know the rules of this game. We're about to explain it. Now, the Rotten Tomatoes game is simple. We're going to guess, or really will usually guesses because I'm looking at it, the Rotten Tomatoes score. You get a couple of hints, like how many reviews have been counted and everything like that. It's obviously a score out of 100. And then you guess that, you guess the audience score, and you guess the cinema score, although I don't think they have a cinema score for this one. So we'll just be doing the Rotten Tomatoes aspect of it. Any questions?
No, I'm ready to play.
All right. I think, you know, it depends on what kind of Will Ashton you're going to get. Sometimes he's spot on. No, he can't be stopped. Other times, I don't know. It's like, yeah, he's just ready for the show to end or something. He's just like, I'll just guess whatever. I'm just kidding. Well, you always bring it your all. What do you think the Rotten Tomato score is for Being the Ricardos? We'll start with you, Will Ashton. We have 211 reviews counted. Okay. So, where do you think the tomato meter is at?
I think it's going to be high. I don't think it's going to be 90% high, but I could see it being higher than 80 or like 78 or something like that. So I'm going to guess 84%.
Okay, Will guesses 84%. Anna, what about you? Where do you think this one's at?
So I feel like I've been seeing promotional material for this for its release on Prime, saying that it was reasonably high. I'm not sure if it quite cracked the 90s either, but just to distance myself from Will, I will put it up there and I will say 92.
Okay, so you say 92. You both are quite far away from it. It's 69%.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah, there we go.
Right. Yeah, I was wondering who was going to say it first. Yeah,
Sure.
69%. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting this to be in the 70s. to be honest. I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting 80s, just because I do think that people are kind of rebelling against this movie and
Are
how.
they?
Oh
guess.
yeah, I'm seeing some real strong negativity on my timeline. So, but that is just my timeline.
Yeah, I feel like most like kind of general like Midwest critics would be like, yeah, it's pretty good. Like nothing against them or their opinion, just kind of just being like, yeah, like it's fine. Like I just thought like a lot of those opinions would sneak its way to make it like 80%.
Yeah, totally understandable. But what about the audience score? That's always interesting, isn't it? Now we have 100 plus verified ratings, which I think that's enough to get a nice little sample here. What do you think the audience score is? And this time we'll start with you, Anna.
So I feel like the audience score is always less than the Rotten Tomatoes score, unless it's like a Marvel movie. Nothing against Marvel movies, just saw Spider-Man, but I'm gonna put this at like 54%.
Okay, 54. And what about you, Will?
I imagine audiences are going to be favorable, maybe not overwhelmingly so. I'm going to go 10 notches lower than I went last time and say 74%.
Ooh, Will, you are one off. Very close.
Wow.
73%.
Wow. All right.
Well done. And you got it eventually, but that's the game, isn't it? So that's being the Ricardos. Yeah. I guess audiences and critics aren't that far apart on this one. And I wonder if it's because maybe there are more I Love Lucy fans than we thought. Who, maybe this is a bigger subreddit than we imagined. And although I guess that wouldn't be the case. Then it would be like a 0% or something. But all right. That is our review of Being the Ricardos. As we mentioned, you can watch it in limited release, and you could also check it out on Amazon Prime Video, which is what I did. And it is, let's look at the length. Oh, running time is pretty long, 131 minutes. I actually thought it felt longer. I thought it was like 2.5 hours, but nope, it's 2 hours and 10 minutes. So check it out if you are interested. Anna, thanks so much for being on the show. Is there anything else you wanted to plug? I know we're plugging your YouTube channel, but any final words with us?
Well, thank you for having me on Cinemaholics. I would love to come back any other time. Will thinks that I need to be on. And yeah,
he's your biggest advocate, that's for sure.
I would love for people to check out I Love Bananas over on our YouTube channel, Silly Sickos. We also stream on twitch.tv/sillysickos. So if you ever want to come hang out, we're online terminally. So definitely do that. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you again for being on. It was really awesome having you.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say you have a spoiler review as well if you want to promote that too.
Yes, we did do a spoiler review video of Being the Ricardos that you can see on our channel.
Perfect. All right. Yeah, check that because we didn't get into spoilers, and there's some spoilers we could certainly touch on. But for now, we're gonna say goodbye. Have a wonderful holiday, and I guess this is it from us until we talk about Matrix Resurrections next time on the show. I assume we'll also be talking about The Kingsman, maybe Sing 2, a few other things. We'll find out. Thank you so much for listening to our show. Be sure to subscribe to Cinemaholics on your favorite podcast app of choice or find us on YouTube. See you all next time.